Hello and welcome to Clay Center Now. I am Amy Baer with Clay County Economic Development, and today we are doing a special episode. As many of you guys in the area know, we are inside of the Rex Theater, and today here with me is Bob Harvey, and he is one of the partners that is renovating the Rex. Welcome, Bob.
Good morning.
So, we're just going to kind of talk about different things that are going on with the Rex this month and kind of tell you what's going on and all that good stuff. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. What brought you to Clay Center?
Well, approximately a year and a half ago, we were contacted by a company that was working with a hospital and asked if we would come down and help the hospital with their capital campaign, cover the cost, some of the costs of their expansion. And we came down, drove around town, and stood on the street and talked to some people, and we decided that it was a good match for us, so we relocated here.
Great, that's fantastic. So what in particular drew, you mentioned your wife a little bit ago, what drew you and Judy to the Rex in particular? How did you guys end up taking on such a massive project?
Well, historically, it's as a result of family ties. I have two daughters who are very artsy. And we're both graduates of arts programs in undergraduate school, and as a result of that I became much more aware of things. I've always had an interest in historic preservation, and when we came into town and we drove around the town square, the entire building and its condition just stood out. I saw it as a potential incredible asset, and didn't think that it was representing itself or the community well at that point. So that's what got our attention. Absolutely,
absolutely. And being in this theater, I myself have been in this several times since you guys have started renovations. And I had never been in it before because I'm not a native to Clay Center myself. And just looking at it, and it is in immaculate condition. And some of you guys will see what kind of great condition it's in a little bit later on in the show. But anyway, before that, can you go ahead and let us know a little bit briefly about the history of the Rex?
Well, you'd have to go someplace back right after the turn of the century, early 1900s. A gentleman who was an archaeologist was living here in town, and he decided that the theater needs were not being met, and he took it upon himself to establish an outdoor theater on this very same site. And I'm not sure why Mr. Schultz wasn't paying attention to climate, because an outdoor theater in Kansas is probably going to have a relatively short season.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So somewhere quickly he determined that the best thing to do was to raise the old outdoor theater and establish a state-of-the-art, for that period, theater at the same location. And he contracted with a gentleman who had just finished doing a lot of work in Manhattan with Wareham and a couple of other things, and they had a great reputation for theaters. And the next thing you know, they came up with the concept of the Rex.
Okay. What's kind of the history after around, you know, because the building's obviously been around for close to 100 years now?
We're about 2 years away from their 100th year anniversary. It was dedicated in the month of in November. In 1920.
Okay.
I was running about 7 months behind construction schedules, and I hope that's not the case on ours, but you never know. But it's coming up. I've said, aside from our grand reopening, the greatest celebration that our town's ever seen will be our 100th year anniversary.
That's great. That is really great. Can you let us know a little bit more about the history after the theater opened up until now, maybe?
Well, you have to understand the first theater was designed around silent movies. Talkies had not come about yet, so in front of the stage would have been either a pianist or an organist looking at the screen and matching up all sorts of music to whatever was going on the stage. Some 6, almost 7 years later, talkies surfaced, and all of a sudden had to re-engineer the building to accommodate that requirement. It stayed about that same marginal kind of improvements for 40, 50 years, and then they found themselves in a situation where they had to catch up with technology in Hollywood, and that was CinemaScope.
Oh, okay.
So in the early 60s, they had to go back and revise the configuration of the screen and bring in some new projection equipment, that type of thing. and bring it up to modern day. There's been a number of owners for the building throughout all of the years of it's been out here, and we're going to be chronicling all of that, those groups of names and all the progress over the years. But we're bringing it back to its original appearance, its original configuration, and its original use, which is cinema, yes, but also live theater, concerts, and the things that Mr. Schultz would have liked to have seen back in 1920.
Absolutely. And I think this is going to be such a great asset to not only the Clay Center community, but definitely the area in general. Well, I think now is a great time to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the great finds that Bob has found here in the theater. So stay tuned.
At Eagle Communications, we're proud to provide the communications services you need to get the most from today's technology. Our employee owners make it happen. We're part of your community, and we take pride in delivering excellent customer service. If you ever have a question, give us a call. We're here to help. Eagle Communications, our community connected.
Welcome back to Clay Center Now. I'm Amy Baer with Clay County Economic Development Group. And today we're speaking with Bob Harvey, one of the partners with the Rex Returns, resurrecting the Rex Theater. And so far you've found some really, really interesting finds here in the Rex. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those items?
Well, the overall capacity of storage space in this building is massive, and it's a good thing because there was a massive amount of storage in it. Very often one hopes to find something that's very significant to the building that can be resurrected and put back in place. And one of the first things that happened, we became aware fairly early on that in front of the old ticket booth, the box office, if you will, what we thought was a piece of trim on the front of the box office was actually a brass railing that was put up there to more or less help people make decisions about how they would step up rather than just step up immediately in front of it. Mm-hmm. And we marveled at the fact that it was there, and one of the lower levels of storage that was under the stage, peeked around, and sure enough we found at least 2/3 of that railing, the top part, in one of the posts. And so we're going to get that cleaned up and rebuilt and put it right back where it was. We found the spots on the floor, the original floor where the box office was, and so we know where the stanchions go. So that's in there. Mm-hmm. The next great find was not particularly related to the theater, but the two small offices, or small, well, I guess you'd call them offices, storefronts mm-hmm. on each side of the building. We felt, and we had done enough looking to know that it was true, that there were actually leaded glass panes above each of the main windows. And starting to dismantle that and put that back in place, we found out that one section of it was gone. And sure enough, in another storage room, we mm-hmm. found the pane that was missing with the 5 little blocks of glass. We've done some work on that. We've got a company that's great at restoring this stuff. They'll be going back, so both sides will have their leaded glass clerestory windows. Mm-hmm. And most recently, we got a call from some people saying we may have some leaded glass that belongs to the Rex. We went out and looked at them, and I said, I'm virtually certain that has Rex written all over it, but I'll have to do some research. Fortunately, we were given a great picture that confirmed that they were. They were the leaded glass that were above each of the entrance and exit doors in the main lobby. And we have them. They're in very good condition, dirty, need a little bit of strengthening, but they'll be going back in their original location.
Mm-hmm. That is absolutely amazing, and you guys have been so lucky to find so many great different artifacts, you know, that were stored so well both within the Rex and, you know, just in the community. I know our viewers are definitely seeing this beautiful backdrop right here. I know there's a really interesting story behind it. It's actually kind of one of my personal favorites. So would you like to tell our viewers a little bit about that?
Well, when we started taking a look at the system that allowed scenery to drop into place and everything that's been in place since the very opening of the theater, we found ourselves wondering what that big piece of art was that was up in the corner, and we finally got it down and started doing some research on it. The piece itself was an interesting concept that was by a company out of Los Angeles that used to make these stock drawings that they would send out as a backdrop for plays. And the client, whomever bought it, could take it and embellish the existing or paint over, do whatever they needed to do to make it work. This came out in 1905, and it was, well, I'm sorry, 1915. And it was immediately put into use in the outdoor theater that was here, and appeared in a play. And then when this theater was built, and we know now that it was used in a play in 1920 that was done by the junior class of 1920, as they took it upon themselves to write on the back of the canvas. So we can document a lot of the information that goes along with it. But it's an incredible piece of history where it's in incredibly bad condition, and we're going to preserve as much of it as we can and find an appropriate place to display that.
Yeah, and that's so amazing, definitely on a historical value too, that, you know, these kids from 100 years ago are still very much like the kids are today in terms of the aspect that they want to leave their mark, and they certainly did, you know, on the back of the canvas. So what have you done so far in terms of the renovations to the Rex?
Well, the first thing we had to do was put a demolition plan together that would get us back to the original building. The owners, after the first, were frequently modifying it to meet their needs or their tastes. And so we had to get back to the original structure, and we've pretty much done that.
Okay.
We also found ourselves in a situation where we had to sometimes do what the puppy dogs do when you bark an order at them, no pun intended. They kind of tilt their head and look at you like, what? Why? Well, that's what we find ourselves when we're going through demolition. We find something, we go, what is that, and why is it here? And some of them we've been able to figure out. A couple of them is just beyond our capacity. So that's another big issue. Coming attractions, signs, and because of the fact that the entrance of the theater was so inset, people are going to find that to be a very challenging thing to accept, because the bulk of what is now the lobby will actually be out of doors, undercover, but out of doors. And so it really, the change back to the original is going to be quite a jolt for several people.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. So what still needs to be completed in restoring the Rex back to its former glory?
Well, we're having to temper our plans, some of them driven by codes and a bunch of other things, to come as close as we can to the original, but understanding that we have to provide competitive technology, both in terms of projection and sound, comfortable seats, a number of things like that. So we're trying to integrate that in there. Many people have cited the fact that the bathrooms were just not adequate for their needs. So we are expanding those and making them much more usable. Once we get done with that, and once we start bringing the crews in to start putting the new technology in place and the new seats and everything, we'll start tearing into the stage, because we really are making a commitment to community theater and live performances, and we've already been contacted about concerts.
Oh, great,
So
great. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. I do want to ask you though, what's your approximate timeline on opening the Rex back up?
I think it's interesting that you phrased that question that way. We've been saying spring of next year, because spring in Kansas gives you a 4 or 5 month leeway.
Oh,
so
well.
let's just say April-ish.
Okay, that's fair. We'll definitely go on the ish on that one. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and then we're definitely going to talk more with Bob about what he plans to bring into the Rex specifically for everybody in the area's viewing enjoyment. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Around here, we believe in local values like hard work, family time, or a fair price on reliable internet from a local company. That's why Eagle Communications delivers great local values, like a range of internet options to fit your family's needs. Fast and consistent enough to power everyone's devices at once. All at reasonable prices we're proud to offer our friends and neighbors. Ready for better internet? Give us a call or visit eaglecom.net and discover our local values today.
Welcome back to Clay Center Now. This is Amy Baer with Clay County Economic Development Group, and we're still speaking with Bob Harvey with the Rex Renovations. And right now we flipped around and we kind of wanted to show you a little bit more of what the full theater looks like. So hopefully you guys here at home can see what that looks like. In our last segment, we were talking about some of the fines, and we actually had forgotten to bring that up. We have one other one that Bob just uncovered a couple of days ago. And Bob, would you like to tell our viewers about that?
Well, I think most people are going to remember the depending on who you talk to, turquoise or aqua colored seats that were in there, which were the earliest of the seats that were installed in the theater back somewhere in the late 40s, depending on who you talk to, anywhere from the late 40s to the early 70s. The theater management decided to take the seats apart, paint the end caps, what's called aisle cap, and consequently they made them all look the same. We were fortunate now to have uncovered in the deepest, darkest depths of the storage areas some of the original colors, and it's startling when you see what's going on. This one just surfaced day before yesterday, and this kind of give you a feel of a fairly, now this hasn't been cleaned or anything else. This is archaeology at its finest. And this is kind of what you would expect to see in theaters of that age, kind of an Egyptian feel to it, the standard colors that go along with that roaring 20s kind of thing that goes on to it, but they're just incredible.
Yeah.
The detail and the casting is just, we're just really glad to find these.
It's an absolutely beautiful shape for being, you know, an artifact that's almost 100 years old. It definitely has kind of a Victorian feel to it. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, marketing people call that patina, the rest of us call it dirt. Yes.
That is very true.
Yeah.
So anyway, in our last segment, we also touched a little bit on some of the events that you hope to hold here. So what kind of, aside from movies, what kind of cultural and entertainment events do you want to hold here at the Rex?
Right now, as long as it's legal and draws a crowd, we'll probably consider it, because we really do want bodies in the building. The future of the building, the success and the sustainability is directly dependent on what we can do in the building. So I would not be surprised to see children's birthday parties followed by a child's movie, all sorts of concerts, of course. If we can get an interest in not just Clay Center, but the surrounding areas to get involved in community theaters, one-act plays, and those types of things, it'll be just a wonderful experience. We've talked with the theaters in the surrounding areas, those that have the ability to do this. Not all theaters are set up with this stage, so that limits their abilities. Having this stage attached to this theater is just an extraordinarily important asset.
Absolutely, and the stage that we're on, you know, is probably what, 30 foot deep or so?
It's about 38 front to back.
Okay, and it's in immaculate condition. In fact, we could probably jump up and down on it and be good to go.
Well, we could probably, but I'd hate to put 20 dancers out here doing that.
Sure, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of alluded to it earlier. So would you be able, I mean, in part of the facilities plan, would you like to rent this facility out for private events then?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
We are going to work a very, I'm going to say, lenient cinema schedule, because while a movie theater is important, we don't want to narrow it down to that. So we're putting in a high-speed screen lift so that we can get this up into the fly system very quickly, so things can happen during the course of the day or the evening, and another event can come in and take part in that. So we're gonna use it to its fullest.
Absolutely, and that's so great to have that kind of versatility with a space like this. That's fabulous. So what other information would you like our viewers to know about today?
Well, the reason that the partnership got involved in this is certainly not to make money. It's sustainability is kind of a flat line on things like this. It just has to be part of the fabric of the community. It has to be a gathering place. It's a social phenomenon, and that's the most important thing, is to do whatever we can to get the community back and feeling a sense of pride and ownership in the theater. And we're already seeing evidence of that. The people who stop in and the people who call and everything, it's been, the response has been very heartening.
You know, and I find a lot of times with social media, sometimes we get sucked into our own little worlds and into the worlds of our phones, and sometimes we lack actual people skills. And you know, I think a facility like this in our community is going to be such a boon to bringing back, you know, old school people interaction. I think it's going to be a really, really great thing. So where can people follow your progress that you guys have made so far?
Well, I'd like to say just drop by, but that's becoming an issue because we're getting many visitors, and we'll soon be sealing off the front because we have to start getting into overhead work and things that just don't allow for people to come into the building. Before long, we'll have a website set up, so we'll be posting some of the many pictures that we've taken to this point. We do have an office that'll be set up, and we'll get the information out there. I don't want to discourage people from calling and asking questions.
Sure.
But we will soon have to really limit access to the building. For one thing, we don't have much of a heating system.
Yeah, I was going to say that the back doors are currently open, and it's a little bit drafty, and you know, for being the end of November and in December, most definitely. So, is there anything else that you would like our audience to know about the Rex today?
I think not. I think we're probably going to start a little bit of a different branding exercise. I think we're going to start referring to it as the Rex Theater and Concert Hall, just to help people understand there's more to it than just cinema.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people might kind of go, what is that? But it'll help us identify our purpose.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, well, on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's episode. You can view former episodes on our YouTube channel, Clay County Economic Development, or on Eagle channels through YouTube, as well as on Eagle Cable Access Channel 2. For now, we're going to go ahead and sign off. You guys have a good month and have a great holiday season.